Straight ahead, we visit with 4-H members and see how they're coping with the heat. Plus, how extreme weather has been impacting corn growers in the epicenter of drought. We'll also hear from the governor and ag leaders. All here at the Nebraska State Fair, it's time to grow. The Nebraska State Fair celebrates a milestone as opening weekend sees visitor number 4 million since the move to Grand Island. The fairgrounds becoming Nebraska's largest classroom, and this year the fair hosting schools 3 different days. Opening day alone saw a record 6,000 kids coming to learn about agriculture. The first farmer as governor in more than a century, Governor Jim Billen says his grandkids have 4-H projects at the fair. Above all, he says it's a celebration of agriculture.
You know, all of us in agriculture, we work hard and we work harder, and we never brag about it, what we do. And it's really, really important that we take time to celebrate and that we take time to brag, and that's really the essence of the State Fair.
The chair of the Fair Board calls Pillen an ag guy leading an ag state. Governor Pillen got choked up saying he found his granddaughter's 4-H project and saw a purple ribbon on it. He says 4-H provides many kids their first exposure to university faculty and building leaders. The competition at the State Fair has been hot, but the barns staying cool. And some families got an early start in an attempt to beat the heat. Fiddling with the fan comes first with this forecast. Creature comforts are a must when livestock are your livelihood. Cattle can suffer from heat stress and need water, shade, and air movement.
Try and keep the calves cool as good as we can.
Riley Robinson's trip to the State Fair started early.
We loaded the calves on the trailer at around 5:30 so we could get here real early through the coolness of the day, and then we started rinsing them just to keep them extra cool.
Stock shows are a way of life for many, and the State Fair marks the end of the summer season. It's a vacation of sorts, but starts with heavy lifting.
It's a lot of time, a lot of muscle work, you know, if you want to do this, you need to know that you're gonna be warm and toasty during these days.
Fortunately, the Nebraska State Fair is equipped with plenty of outlets and climate-controlled facilities.
These barns are about as good as they get, aren't they?
Yes.
The fair decided to allow exhibitors to arrive early.
Thinking about animal welfare, we were excited to get those hours a little bit earlier.
And at least in the cooler morning hours.
The strategy is simple.
Hopefully stay cool, get them in, cattle in, and bedded down and under fans, and just stay put.
We visited here at the fair with Governor Jim Pillen about the challenges Nebraska livestock producers have faced in the heat.
Because this heat has caused some extraordinary challenges, particularly in the cattle industry, the fat cattle industry. So we've been working very, very hard on improvements with the livestock indemnity program, and we're hoping to be able to have a response that will be good for Nebraska cattlemen.
4-H leaders had a cool spot to check in with the hundreds of exhibits you will see at the Nebraska State Fair. Extension staff organizing the projects that advance from local county fairs. They'll remain there until the night of Labor Day. Extreme heat has been the story of the past week, and climate scientists say we should expect more heat waves in the future.
We are going to...
Mike Bergen had a ray of hope when the season began.
They said, you know, plant in the dust and the bins will bust.
But the sun's rays continue to beat down on an area that's now the epicenter of drought in Nebraska.
Didn't get the rains.
Bergen had about 1.5 inches in early June, but not much since. Fortunately, most crops here are irrigated, and Bergen uses technology to manage that, hoping he'll avoid future restrictions.
If we have another year compounded on top of this, that we're going to hit that trigger level that was established by the NRD, but currently we don't have any allocations.
What we're seeing right now, I would expect only more of that.
State climatologist Martha Durr says this heat dome effect is becoming more common.
And it is directly tied to our changing climate conditions.
Durr says scientists have high confidence extreme heat waves will be more frequent and more intense.
Need to be planning for those dry times, those hot times, the wet times, and making sure we have those local resources in place. I think is really going to be a critical issue.
And that extreme heat can affect crop development. This year, almost an hourglass shape.
For the heat events in particular, it's really all about the timing. For example, are the crops at? Is it the grain fill stage? Is it pollination? And these heat events are also tied to lack of moisture. So the combination of heat and the dryness can certainly have an impact as well.
Back on Mike Bergen's farm, he says it's been a nonstop job of irrigating while making sure to protect that water resource.
And we want to keep it sustainable for a long time, for generations.
The state climatologist has a warning for those organizing rodeos and fairs.
Those kinds of activities certainly should keep these heat events in their planning, perhaps shifting to a different time of year, if that's a possibility, or having measures in place that will people will have the ability to cool down, cooling shelter.
Welcome back to our live coverage of the Nebraska State Fair. Of course, 4-H is a big part of the fair, but the impact goes outside these grounds. And Kathleen is joining us to talk more about it. You know that impact better than anybody else.
Well, it is so exciting to be here at the Nebraska State Fair. You know, this is the showcase of all the young people who've been working throughout the year on their projects, whatever has sparked their interest, from veterinary science to rockets to livestock to baking. All of those things are culminating right here at your Nebraska State Fair. So we love to talk about that. We love the fact that in Nebraska, young people are so supported. And I wanted to focus just on a couple of things people might not think about. So when you're coming to the fair this next 10, 11 days, it's a great state to be in. When you think about young people, we're all about helping them be successful. And you think about all of your newscasts are going to talk about young people and being the main key of the fair. You're going to hear them talk about agriculture and the importance of getting youth into agriculture. Our governor kicked off the opening ceremony this morning and talked about his granddaughter's exhibit, and he actually went to the exhibit hall to seek it out. So we've got that kind of support from the administrative levels to the over 12,000 volunteers that help with 4-H throughout the year, to the kind of support we get from the state fair. Early this morning, we started with the state's largest classroom. So there's young people throughout the fairgrounds doing a variety of different learning experiences. We get support for that. We just upped the premiums this year for 4-H and FFAers. And so our state is willing not only to support young people, but put their money where their mouth is to make that happen. And I just want to say thank you to all of Nebraska, and thank you to the people for thinking in that way and thinking and being that futuristic. Programs like ours can be successful, but even more successful with that kind of support behind them. And it's our Nebraska that pulls this off.
Yeah. I know, volunteerism kind of went down over the past few years. How do you continue that buy-in and maintain that infrastructure for these kids?
You're making a really good point. And what we're finding is that volunteerism went down a bit, but it's changing. So we've got a new volunteer who wants to do things just a little bit differently. We may not see the 20-year volunteer in some cases anymore, but a volunteer role that fits their needs at that time. So maybe it's an episodic volunteer that come in, do one event, and they're done. Corporate volunteerism. We just had a local group in town on, I believe, Wednesday it was, okay, so we're talking 106 degrees, that were out physically spreading wood chips in our pens, and they did it as a community-wide system in their organization. They were all here, they had fun with it, they had prizes, so it's a different look, and one of our jobs is to help seek out the match between what our young people need and what the program needs, and what those volunteers need and want to contribute.
And anything else you want people to know when they're walking these fairgrounds and looking at those 4-H projects?
You know, take a look. And as you take a look at amazing exhibits, you can be like, wow, a kid did that? That's impressive. Well, think about that impressive, but think about the hours of learning that went into that. Think about the family ties that were made during making that exhibit. And then think about how we want the person who made that exhibit to be the next leader of our state.
Yeah, setting the goals, and there's a lot more to the project than the project.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much, Kathleen.
Thanks for letting me be here.
Yeah.
Up next, we see just how many hundreds of Nebraska schools now offer FFA, and we celebrate a longtime egg educator.
This portion of NTV's Grow is sponsored by Acres Equipment, solutions for every field. Acres has what you need to get the job done.
And we're talking with Brian, the FFA superintendent for the fair. They split those weekends up, 4-H this weekend, livestock shows for FFA next weekend. How's that working out?
You know, it's been really good. Obviously, anytime you make a change, it works well for some and not as well for others. But the thing that's been nice is we've been really able to showcase both organizations and the accomplishments and the hard work of our youth on both weekends. And so it's fun to have, you know, kind of this really cool youth experience the first weekend, and then also to cap off the fair the second weekend with another youth experience. So it's been great.
Yeah. How's participation this year?
Yeah, it looks great. So we again, our entries are up. Total exhibitors are up. We've got about 1,000 FFA members that are going to be exhibiting next weekend, and almost 3,000 total exhibits. So we're really excited. This is as good of an experience and as good of a participation as we've had since the pre-COVID years. So it's been great.
Wow. Do you attribute that to anything?
You know, I think obviously once we had more space and just the ability to kind of offer some additional shows and experiences, that's helped. So one thing I always like to highlight, this is the first year that FFA is going to offer a rabbit show and a poultry show. So that's going to be a really cool experience for our young people that we've not been able to do in the past. So that's helped as well.
Yeah, very cool. Taking over for Kent Zeller, and you said this has kind of been a long time coming, so there's no surprises for you taking over.
Right. No, I worked with Kent since 2012, and he and I have kind of split duties, and so really there's not a lot that's different as far as what I will do. Really, we've tried to bring on a few other folks to take over the things that he has done, but obviously Kent has been, you know, a staple here at the fair, and you won't find a bigger advocate for youth livestock showing and the state fair than Kent Zeller, and so it's been phenomenal to work with him, and obviously he'll continue to be at the fair, but yeah, he's just been a phenomenal advocate for the fair.
Yeah, you're not getting rid of him.
No, exactly.
Outside the fairgrounds, do you see FFA growing in our schools?
Absolutely. So we've got 214 FFA chapters this year. A number of new chapters came on board. One that we've been really excited to highlight is Beatrice. Just brought back an Ag Ed and FFA program. So Beatrice was the first FFA and Ag Ed program in the state, the very first one that was chartered. They were out for a little while, but starting this school year, Beatrice is back. So that's been a really cool one to bring back. We're up to 11,000 members, 11,600 members in FFA. So just that number has grown tremendously over the last probably decade or so. And it speaks to me, obviously, about the value of ag education and the programming that our teachers are doing, but the value that this state places on agriculture and ag education.
And I know you were having trouble finding ag educators to come into the schools. Is that still a challenge?
You know, it is. It's an ongoing challenge for any profession, especially in the teaching, regardless of subject matter. But finding the right good teachers, yeah, it's going to continue to be a challenge. And so we've really tried to be intentional about recruiting, you know, former students and those people who have had an impact in agriculture, or that ag education has had an impact on them, to come back and be a part of it. So yeah, it's going to continue to be an ongoing challenge, but we recognize its value and its importance.
All right. Well, thank you so much for stopping by.
You bet. Appreciate it.
Is the heat wave over? Our Girl Weather Outlook is next.
NTV's Grow Weather is sponsored by Acres Equipment, solutions for every field. Acres has what you need to get the job done.
Well, still very dry across the Central Plains, as the drought monitor is still indicating. The drought monitor still looks very similar to what we had even last week. In fact, speaking of similar, it looks about the exact same as what we had last week. No change at all, really, in the state of Kansas. And going through these, about 16 1/3% in no drought, still mainly the western part of the state. Abnormally dry, 83 2/3% there. Moderate drought still at 65 3/4%. Severe drought, roughly 42% as well. Extreme drought, roughly 18 1/4% there. And exceptional still in the southeast part of the state, 1.3% in the exceptional category there. And moving up to Nebraska now, where the only change that we had was a 1/100th percentile change in the moderate category from last week, but still really no drought in the state of Nebraska, roughly 29.5%, mainly in western areas as well. Abnormally dry, roughly 70.5%. Moderate drought, 52 1/4% still there. Severe drought, roughly 29 1/4% as well. Extreme drought, 14.5%. Exceptional, still 1.31% last week, still there around the just east of the Tri-Cities up near Columbus. So temperature outlook for the month of September still looks the same as last week as well, where above average temperatures are expected for pretty much all of Nebraska and Kansas. The precipitation outlook for the month of September also looks very similar to last week, where the extreme slight eastern portion of Nebraska there may be experiencing drier conditions possible for the month of September. Otherwise, looks to be equal chances elsewhere across Nebraska and Kansas. Now, the next 3 months, this is also the same compared to last week too. September, October, and November, temperatures maybe just a touch warmer in the southwest part of the Panhandle and clipping the extreme southwest part of Nebraska as well. Even parts of southwest Kansas could be above average temperatures as well. Otherwise, equal chances. And likewise with precipitation, this is actually pretty good to see. Still the same as last week, where equal chances persist for all of Nebraska and Kansas. Now, your grow weather week ahead. 86 on Monday, starting off the week right around where we should be, and temperatures cooling off just a touch on Tuesday. But as we head into the latter part of the week, temperatures try and warm up, 96 potentially by Friday. A couple rain chances here and there, although I think this next week looks fairly dry. Your grow week ahead, the almanac, normally right around this year, right around 84. Low temperatures right around 60 degrees too. The week ahead trending just a little above normal because of those last couple of days towards the end of the week. 89, the average high. Week ahead, average low for the week ahead, roughly about 60, right about where we should be, of course. And then your grow proverb for the week: fair on the 1st of September, fair the entire month. If only that was true for the state fair. That'd be quite nice if it would last the whole month, if you know what I mean. But state fair weather on the 1st of September does in fact look fair. That is a look at this week's Grow Weather Report. Stay tuned again next week when once again it will be time to grow.
We want to see your state fair photos. Show off your kids and grandkids doing their purple ribbon best. Go to our website, nebraska.tv, and click Chime In.
Ag Outlook on NTV's Grow is driven by Cornhusker Toyota Honda, home of the Toyota Tacoma and Tundra trucks, and Nebraska's only dual Toyota Honda dealer.
How do you turn goats and chickens into Nebraska beef? The answer begins here inside the barns at the Nebraska State Fair, where kids start with small animals and build big dreams. A kid named Baker doesn't put bread but meat on the table.
Cows.
That's what they raise on the farm, but this 10-year-old starts smaller, bringing sheep to the state fair.
The small animal projects are so important because it gives kids a stepping stone to starting something more.
Kelly Bruns is a longtime animal science professor and runs university research farms. Even deep in the beef state, county fairs have more small animals than cattle.
We have probably twice as many exhibitors here in sheep and goats because they're just getting started before they go on to maybe some bigger projects.
Inside the small animal barn, you'll find rabbits and poultry too.
I'm holding a blue Orpington.
Some will sell eggs and learn economic lessons that can help on the family farm.
We have soybean, corn, as well as cattle.
It's a place for kids like Baker to learn the fundamentals.
You gotta feed them, you gotta walk them, you gotta wash them. Almost every day.
While other fifth graders are getting screen time or maybe getting into basketball, Baker is learning life lessons through livestock.
The tough thing about my project is probably the hard work. You just gotta work for all of it.
What we're really doing with these projects is making better kids, more responsible kids.
Weekend number 1 in the books here at the Nebraska State Fair. It has been a great time with our 4-H youth. We've got open class shows coming up, FFA next weekend, and expect more coverage all week long right here on NTV. And we'll see you back here again next time as we see how agriculture makes Nebraska grow.
NTV's Grow is brought to you by Aurora Cooperative. Tougher together, Aurora and you.